Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Sherman Rivers, and in this video we're going to talk about sacrifice. Sacrifice. Are you sacrificing yourself? What is sacrifice? Should we sacrifice? What are your thoughts about sacrifice and sacrificing oneself? Is that word sacrifice often confused with the word compromise? I'll tell you a story about sacrifice. Um, let's talk about the meaning of sacrifice before we go any further. There's actually two different meanings of it. One involves a spiritual sense, God, right? An offering to God is a sacrifice. The other definition points more towards giving up something, letting something go, destroying something for the greater good, sacrificing in that manner. And those two often become conflated in our minds, right? Because when you look at the motivation for making a sacrifice, you got to really think about why you're doing that. And sometimes it can be a negative thing. We like to think of sacrifice as all good. It's all good. Oh, he made a sacrifice. He's a really good person. She sacrificed this. She's a really great person. But is that always true? Can sacrifice be a negative thing? I believe that it can, and I believe that it often is in our lives because sometimes, based on what we've been taught and the fact that we've been led to believe that sacrifice is always a good thing, it negatively impacts our lives to a degree that's just unacceptable. At least in my book, it is unacceptable. Often we're called upon to make sacrifices, whether explicitly or implicitly. And because of what we believe about sacrificing, we're more than willing to do so. I like to call it falling on the sword, right? Taking one for the team, uh, things like that. And a lot of times we can think we're doing a really good thing. But if we really dive into that, we'll see that it becomes an issue of responsibility. Um, at least one aspect of it is responsibility, um, personal responsibility. You know, I have a different set of tenets that I live by. And in terms of personal responsibility, it comes out of really two things. One is not asking someone to do something for you that you can and should do for yourself. But then there's the other side of that, which is doing things for other people that they can and should do for themselves. And often that involves a sacrifice, right? You got to give up something in order to do something for them that they could and should do for themselves. How is that a good thing? One is actually, you're actually harming that person when you stop and think about it, because you're depriving them of an opportunity to get their stuff together, to do better, to fix their own situation, um, and become better for it. You're depriving them of an opportunity to grow. And you're doing that under the guise of sacrifice, which is supposed to be a really great thing, right? So are you sacrificing yourself? Are you living your life in such a way that you're depriving yourself of some of the good things that you deserve or that you've worked for or that you earned, um, just so that you can make somebody else happy or quote unquote, give someone else what they need when they're more than capable of doing that for themselves. Earlier, I mentioned compromise often being confused with sacrifice, and we're taught that we should compromise. Life is all about compromising. But here's a question. If everything's about compromise, when do you get what you want in life? If you're always compromising, you'll never get what you truly want. If everything has to be a compromise, I don't buy into that. I don't think that computes. I don't think it adds up. That you should live your life never getting what you want because everything is about compromise. Now, I do believe that life is about choices and trade-offs. For every choice, there is a trade-off, right? That makes sense to me. But everything being a compromise, I don't think so. I think you are sacrificing a lot, too much of who and what you are and what you want in life if every decision that you make is a compromise. I think there's some room in life for a little bit of selfishness. I think that it's necessary. What do you think? Let me know what you think about that in the comments section below. But on to the concept, or back to the concept of sacrifice. I think that a lot of sacrifice that people make in life is actually more tied to that first definition, that offering to God or a God. And why do I think that? Well, because God, or the concept of God, is not always what you think it is, right? I used to say that there was God with the big G, and then there was God with the little g, right? And this could apply regardless of what your religious faith is or what you believe about God and gods. But here's the deal. It was these little g gods, you know. It could be, you could make your God a car. You could make your God a house. Whatever you worship, right? And that becomes your choice. So back to the old definition, my overall definition or thought process, that becomes a choice. And then there's trade-offs in order to have that, right? And then you may sacrifice certain things in order to get that. So that can be considered part of the trade-off thing. But let's dive into it a little bit deeper. Sometimes these gods are actually people, right? That in some way, shape, or form you worship them. You value them or their presence in your life maybe a little bit more than you should. And that's evidenced by your fear of losing that person or losing their presence in your life, or even maybe just upsetting them. So in order to avoid that, if you really look at it, you may find that you offer up things, sacrifices to those gods to do what? Make them happy, right? Why would you sacrifice to God in heaven? To make him happy so that he does nice things for you, or he won't leave you, won't forsake you, or will provide you with something, right? So you make a sacrifice. Sometimes we do that with people, and we turn them into gods, and we sacrifice things, and we make offerings towards them. And the really scary thing is that sometimes these offerings are yourself. Sometimes you'll sacrifice yourself to this false God, well, maybe God in your life, because you value their presence in your life, or believe that they benefit you in such a way that that is the right thing to do. That's what you must do. You must make them happy. Do you do that? I've done it before. Just curious. If you do that or have done that, let me know in the comment section below. Really like to hear that. But if you think you don't do that, I invite you to examine your life a little bit and see if there's a possibility that that might be something that you do. Sacrificing yourself unnecessarily to please someone else. Now, there are worthy sacrifices, but I think those are few and far between, a lot less than we imagine them to be, right? Even Superman. I like superheroes, right? But even Superman, he was in the business of saving folks, but not sure if you noticed, but he never did it by sacrificing himself. Old Superman rarely got involved or got into something that he couldn't handle or that he thought he wasn't built for. In other words, he never went into that situation expecting to give up his own life. Matter of fact, the only time he got whooped, really whooped, that had nothing to do with it. It was all about a personal beef. It was him and the other person, right? So when you've got that Superman complex or whatever, a superhero complex, and you hear somebody screaming for your name, think twice before you rush in and make that sacrifice. All right, run it through that personality or that the responsibility filter. It's just something that they can and should do for themselves. Is it your responsibility or is it theirs? Just food for thought. Let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. See you on the next one. Peace.